wealthiest and most powerful generation of the wealthiest and most powerful country on this earth. And yet at the same time, I just graduated from college into a world undergoing a mass extinction, both of biotic life and of cultures and languages. And at the same time, though Americans are richer than we have been, we are simultaneously reporting that our subjective well-being and subjective happiness has fallen since the 1950s. And so when I'm kind of trying to put this together in my head and I'm trying to think about my future, being a 20-something that Philip just talked about, I kind of get this cognitive dissonance going on. It's like, if we're standing at the brink of the American century, is it in front of us or is it behind us? And I experienced a moment of clarity trying to understand this problem recently. I was reading a Francis Fukuyama article called The Great Disruption, in which he talks about some of these negative social trends. And he looks at how divorce rates are rising, and how trust in the government and in each other is falling, and how the crime is rising. And he looks at that all and he says what we've done as a society is we have conflated what is valuable and useful in the economic sphere with what is valuable and useful in the social sphere. And so we believe that because we can be self-interested and competitive beings at work, being competitive is also going to form a community effectively. And he labels this hyper-individualism. And I see that in myself, and I am a hyper-individualist. I want to go out there and explore the world and live in 15 different countries, and I would like to have a new job every couple of years because it's interesting to me. But it turns out that that doesn't create such great communities. And I see this also when I read the New York Times. Last year, during the Great Recession, I was reading an article about the wealthiest people in America and how seeing their net worth fall from $2 billion to $1.5 billion was causing this upswell of childhood fears. And they were suddenly thinking, oh my God, I might have to move back in with my parents. And that was the number one fear of the wealthiest people in America. They were deathly afraid of it. And I see that as being the most extreme version of hyper-individualism, where we cannot even be dependent on those who reared us because we are such strong people, and those are the most successful people in America. So what's going on? Well, Philip identified that young people are leaving Vermont, and I often hear, why are the young people leaving Vermont? And I hear that it's because there's not enough good jobs for them here. Well, most of my friends moved to Portland, Oregon, which happens to have a 50% higher unemployment rate than all of Vermont. And so I don't think that's an issue for sure, but that's not the only issue going on here. I think we also have this idea of ourselves as people who should experience everything that life has to offer. And while I love that, it's also eating away at our communities. But there's something that you can do, and there's something that we can do. And I sort of happened upon this accidentally in my life, because I am one of those people, one of those young people who's trying to leave Vermont and trying to explore and trying to go to Italy and California. But I got a little stuck here because 3 years ago, I opened a business in Vermont. And now, over the course of those 3 years, I've developed relationships with my customers, with the producers that I work with, to the point that I feel dependent upon them and they're dependent on me. And I can't leave here. I'm responsible to this place. And so what I want to ask today is how can we create the conditions for more young people to step up, to become entrepreneurs and to start their own businesses so that even if they wanted to, they can't leave Vermont. And where I think I see this happening strongly is in farmers markets, which are the markets that we serve. We bring our mobile pizza oven to farmers markets, and we go and we get the ingredients, and we make the pizza on the spot. And now farmers markets are very interesting kinds of institutions and markets because they don't follow traditional economic rules. I'm a student of economics. And so I know that a space to vend should have value. There should be a supply and a demand for spaces at a farmer's market. Well, we don't have that. Instead, it's a cooperatively run organization where vendors can decide who gets to vend there. And that's really interesting because no longer is it about how much money can I pay for that space. It's about, do I share the values with the people who run this market? Do we share values, say, of local food economies? And do we all want to eat healthy food? And do we want to see young farmers be successful? And they did, and they let us in. And so with $5,000, I was able to start a business. And now I could not have started this business in any other way. It is dependent upon that value-based aspect of farmers markets. And another way you see this kind of cooperation is in the information sharing. Now, in the regular market, information is a commodity, and it is bought and sold and traded. But at farmers markets, if you have a slow, rainy day, you get to go to all the other vendors around there and ask them how they're farming. What do they do? What kind of equipment works for them? And what do they do to control pests? And that is the single best education you can get as a young farmer in Vermont, and it's free. And so farmers markets have this focus on cooperation rather than competition. They bring social values into the economic market, and they make it work. And when I think about that, as an economist, I think that's got to be terribly inefficient. There's no way that can work. But what I've seen and what's actually surprised me over the past year is that this year we've been able to produce a pizza entirely composed of Vermont ingredients. So everything in there was grown and produced in Vermont. And it turns out that that pizza is the cheapest pizza for us to produce at the same time. And that is because of the relationships that we've developed with other vendors and with other producers who are interested in the same, who have the same values, who want to see local economies thrive, want to see healthy food made available to people, and want to see that all be affordable. And so we have developed this pizza, and we sell it for almost the same price that you would find the same thing in a Domino's or in a Pizza Hut for. And so what we have is we have a local economy that has emerged to the point where it can effectively compete with the industrial economy. And it's not because we scaled up, it's because we networked based on values. And I believe that we can do this in more than just farmers markets. I believe, first of all, that farmers markets should be every day and they should have a dedicated space. But it's not the farmers market itself that makes this possible. It's sharing a cooperative space with other producers and connecting directly with your consumers. So in any way that you and your businesses can get out there and talk face-to-face or over the phone or whatever, but directly from producers to consumer and have a social relationship alongside your economic one and exchange values in that way, I believe it will create the capacity for more markets that are values-driven, solutions-oriented, and will allow young people to start up their own businesses and stay in the state of Vermont. Thank you very much.